Your ass is caught in a cyclone, tangled up in a twister. This is the best GameSir controller currently. The only two hints that this is a silent sequel to an already existing controller is a very small 2 on the box, and the fact that this is already sort of an unsung hero on the internet with nothing but good things, lots of praise and back massages being given to it. I personally like the original Cyclone. In fact, I would storm chase that bad boy and dig my augers into the ground and let it suck me into the skies. If you haven't seen Twister 2, pretty sick. I'm a little biased, but the YouTuber and his whole squad, they were pretty cool. But what is the difference between the OG and this one, which is the exact same price and has taken over the results page on Amazon, which is where I personally buy all of my controllers that are for sale on this platform? Obviously, the $300 customs and stuff, you got to go through builders. Oh, look at that. The Tarantula's already dropping down in price. So the main headliner here is going to be that this now sports TMR sticks. Now you might see Hall Effect over here. That is simply for search engine optimization. So Hall Effect is still in the search. This does not have Hall Effect thumbstick modules. This uses a different technology called TMR, which is very similar. It uses the connectivity of magnets being broken, so it's far less likely to get stick drift for you than typical potentiometer sensor thumbstick mods. But unlike Hall's, TMRs typically draw less power from the board, noticeably less power from the board, which can result in more battery life. And according to the manufacturers of this technology, that's really leading the forefront of this technology, in my opinion, yes, GameSir is using it now, but Ghoulie Kit's been doing this for like a year now with a sick-ass article on their website. We know they're the ones that brought back the whole Hall Effect craze in the first place with the King Kong, Diddy Kong, smash my barrels up. This is a $50 controller, and there is no weird price discrepancy between third-party vendors like Amazon and then their manufacturer's listing. Now, there is a page specifically for the Cyclone series, and it says right here, Hall Effect Xbox license controller. But really, again, the Hall Effect is for search engine optimization. They do have Hall Effect triggers. There is 2 colorways, both the same price. A quick disclaimer for my audience, the Stallions and Stallionettes, this gamepad was sent for review, but this is going to be an honest, comprehensive review. I haven't been paid to say or not say anything about it. GameSir doesn't get an early preview, and the thoughts in this video are 100% my own. So if there's any cons, shortcomings, or areas of improvement, you're going to hear about it. So these companies make better products over time. A little bit of a smoked, translucent shell, which does let the RGB bleed through. And the whole marketing shtick or slogan over here is pro for everyone. Basically saying that when you get this controller, you are now a professional. You might be a goddamn Christmas noob trying out Call of Duty for the first time. Get this controller in hand, sucker. See what happens to you. You transform into a different man, a myth, a legend, a machine. All bullshit, obviously. All marketing to really hype up teenagers that want to get their mom's credit card to buy a pro controller. Realistically, this does have TMR sticks, which perform nicely. We'll look at them later. Can I see the ass end, please? It's going to be a summary of the key features, which are broken down with these high resolution photos down here. Board compatibility, this right here is definitely some type of a typographical error. This should be broad compatibility because they're flexing that there's universal compatibility, which we of course know logically means one console, PC because obviously, and then Bluetooth compatibility for both of the common cell phone and tablet platforms, which does open up the world of converters or adapters, so you can use this sucker on Xbox and PlayStation, which we'll be doing later in this video. Rumble motors, it's only in the palms, you don't have impulses in the trigger, and they are typical old school rumble motors, not haptics or anything like that. You do have RGB lighting, which you can dim or disable on the fly without the application. You do have a 1000 hertz polling rate, which we will be talking about and testing in this video. It's engaged by default. You do have 6-axis gyro, which is that motion sense aiming, and then you do have 2 back buttons, which is better than none, but not as good as 4. GameSir MagRes TMR sticks. All the companies that are going to be adopting TMR technology are going to have their own unique marketing gimmick name that's trademarked over here. MagRes is what it's called for GameSir. Now, I've actually shared this diagram or chart in a previous review, so I'm not going to really burn it into your corneas too much here. What you need to know with the TMR sticks is you are getting 1000 hertz polling rate on the thumbstick modules. You are getting 5 million cycles or turns before you could potentially get stick drift, as these do have a typical recentering spring on them. And then you do have a really high sampling resolution, which means all of your little micro inputs, especially if you are overclocked, which this is already out of the box, are really going to be registered, especially if you're on the PC side of the house. Oh my God, slap my ass and call me Jebediah. They might have actually done it. These might have an actual real trigger lock system. My God, call the gaming authorities. Realistic and immersive, neither of those 2 words I would use to describe typical rumble motors. Loud, clunky, and battery draining, perhaps. Perfect choice for Nintendo fans. That is the only console that this is designed for, but I know a lot of you are picking it up for PC or running a converter to use it on Xbox or PlayStation. RGB lighting. I think it's implemented pretty cool here. It's very similar to the T4 Khalid series where it bleeds through the front faceplate, and I think it looks really good. This is a big old fat figgity flex over here, 1000 hertz polling rate, wired or wireless. And then you do have software support, showing it on a desktop and a laptop over here via GameSir Connect, software that I kind of ripped up and down the block that the Tarantula uses. However, that was like a month ago. I'm sure they've gotten their ducks in order, probably released a couple patches or updates to make the software what it should be. And then you do have an aluminum charging tower with an RGB status light. And also you can plug the dongle into that, so you only have to use one USB port on your PC tower. It's now sporting micro switch face buttons, which means that they are mechanical, not membrane. Love to see that. Same thing with the tactile Dpad. Tactile doesn't necessarily mean it's mechanical. They could still be membrane, but they have a nice little distinct click to them. 2 back buttons. Also notice that the plastics here don't have any stippling or rubber grip. And you do still have a 3.5mm headphone jack, which is becoming more and more of a relic, but good to see down there. 860 milliamp hour. That's a pretty goddamn small number. Leveraging the power of the internet, the first result here says this controller lasts just under 2 hours, slightly below. Are you smoking coke? A DualSense Edge will get between 6 to 8 hours. I've done actually quite a bit of videos explaining how you can eke out a little more battery life out of the DualSense, and then a pack of dub A's on a Xbox will last you like 50 to 80 hours. So your credibility just went out the window. As this controller just came out, there really is no real life reports on the battery life. It's unfortunate that the gosh darn manufacturer just tells you what the milliamp hour is, but they don't tell you charge time and play time. 2.5 hours of fast charging will get you 6 hours of gameplay, and on a full charge you get 8 hours or something like that. We just have to all have different experiences and share them on the internet. But at least it does have a charger dock, which is convenient because at the end of a day of gameplay, you just chuck it on its dock and know that as long as it's seated correctly, you're ready to go next session. You have an outer sleeve with 2 clear stickers that need sliced to remove that sucker. Then the inner box flips up. You will see your controller held in place with paper, foam rings around the analog sticks, and a plastic bag around your controller and all the accessories. And be careful because there is documentation underneath that cardboard box. The dock feels rugged and durable without being unnecessarily heavy. You do have 4 rubberized feet, so it ain't gonna slide around on your desk. You have a USB port for the dongle, so you don't have to use 2 USB ports on your PC. 4 pogo pins hit the 4 contacts on the back of the controller. Easiest way I've found to get this to seat correctly to where it actually charges is to do the palm grips, the bottom of the controller first, and then kind of rock or tilt the ass end of the controller into place. Back it up and drop it, flip it around and dump it, I guess you could say. But yeah, this dock is really nice. I was muted. I am supremely proud to let you know that GameSir has listened to the feedback of reviewers, people that purchase their controllers, giving their feedback. I'm gonna play a little snippet of the Cyclone 1 review where I shared my sentiments on the D-pad being a big chunk of crap. I don't think there's an imminent explosion of this controller in your future. If you do have any broken parts, GameSir controllers do have 1 year of standardized coverage. The Cyclone 2 has a substantially better D-pad. It is still very light for my liking, and the actuation and the plastics don't feel the best, and cosmetic I think the bronze looks a little bit weird. Having said that, it is a huge step up from the Cyclone 1, not only in durability, I'm sure, because it's mechanical, not membrane, which tend to get stuck in over time, but this just feels better overall and fits this style of controller a lot more. D-pad, it's an upgrade. Same thing with the face buttons. They were mechanical on the Cyclone Pro, but the Cyclone standard missionary position was membrane. Now the Cyclone 2 has mechanical switches, and these require a lot more force to actuate, which was my big complaint or gripe on the previous Cyclone. So D-pad, face buttons, a whole hell of a lot better. The accessory button suite is virtually identical. Placement, feeling of the buttons, which I'm not too crazy about. This does have a share button, which I like, but the select or options button on the left is kind of difficult to hit if you have a high-rise cap. And the home button sinks really far into the front faceplate, and also the metallic paint with the cockle-doodle-doo logo is susceptible to fading off just by pressing it and wearing it off with your hand. As for rear buttons, they do feel almost identical to the Cyclone 1. I will say they are a little bit more tight and secure to actuate and have just an ever so slightly more pleasurable press. The surface plastic's still really slick, and there's still a direct port from the T4 Khalid with these large oversized 2 rear button design, but no real complaints here. I wish there were 2 more rear buttons down there. Bumpers feel virtually untouched from the Cyclone Original and Cyclone Pro. These feel like a stock controller, but definitely nothing to write home about. The triggers are a fucking huge upgrade. Pardon my French, but it took me to the Eiffel Tower, sister. These not only cosmetically look so saucy in my opinion, but you have this trigger lock or stop system, which I don't like where the lever is. It's pretty hard to engage and disengage. You can't really do it on the fly in gameplay. You have to kind of turn the controller around, get a fingernail up underneath there, and flick that bitch on, as opposed to most levers that are on the back shell. But these do take it from a full linear squeeze to a real mechanical micro switch, which in that regard, very nice resistance, perfect balance, I would say. No dead end take up or slop, which you do see with a lot of these aftermarket trigger kits. A little bit of dots or stippling for grip on the triggers and bumpers. Other than the fact it's kind of hard to turn these on and off, I'm turned on by how they feel. So big upgrade in the trigger department. As far as gyro is concerned, the motion aiming, I did do a little test with an aim train, excuse me, golly jeepers, a little aim trainer, and then also attempted to play in Half-Life 2 with the gyro scope. I'm not a big gyro motion aimer. There's a big learning curve to get proficient and then good with that aiming technique, even more so than like a touchpad, I would say. But anywho, I did test it more time than I'd like to, spinning with the gyro, and it actually feels identical to the previous GameSir controllers that have gyro, so no real substantial difference there, which is a good thing. They always had pretty good gyro. Not as good as FlyDigi, I would say, not only in control, the customization in the app, but also the FlyDigi controllers feel pretty responsive on the PC side of the house. But then on Switch, the GameSir controllers feel more like a regular Nintendo controller when using gyro. They don't have amiibo support though, which is fucking dumb. Thumbsticks actually feel identical to the Cyclone Pro previously, as far as resistance, having the anti-friction rings to glide along when you're at full lock. Interestingly enough, there was some dust or debris on my white thumbstick bases, which I just, blew them clean like a Nintendo cartridge and they're good to go now. Clicking down the sticks feels pretty taut and secure. And as far as KontrolFreek compatibility, since these use the identical thumbstick caps as the PlayStation 4 and 5 controller, the Sony hybrids, as I like to call them, compatibility is going to be identical to the previous Cyclone. So grab your shovel, Kevin, and dig up a clip from that previous review. These are hella short. And as far as KontrolFreek thumbstick cap add-ons, what's the compatibility looking like for those? We're going to start with the PS4 and 5 white Galaxies. A little bit of a challenge to get on, but they do fit perfectly. Got some red Infernos for the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. Pretty good. It's a little crooked on there, but it works. It'll get the job done. Then these little droppings from the gods are black Omnis for the Xbox One and Series controller. Oh, golly, you can't force them on. I mean, I guess you could if you're super aggressive and don't mind breaking your shit, but I'm not that guy. They don't work. They're too taut. So you're going to be going with the PlayStation or Nintendo versions. Going wired with the, probably help if you can see what I'm looking at, going wired with the new Cyclone 2. Come over here to Player 2 and Gamepad Tester. We are going to get that visual. Oh my God, you stopped me dead in my tracks with my sentence. These are noticeably more responsive than a lot of Hall Effect modules that I have tested, that probably being because they are TMR, which is pretty much the latest and greatest thumbstick module technology, breaking away from neutral, very fluid, reaching the outside of the thumbstick gates, no problemo. Let's go ahead and run a circularity test. Now, if these are radial or circular thumbsticks, the lower number better here, like golf. If they are square, rectangular joints, which I've talked about in previous reviews, like the FlyDigi Vader 4 Pro, which lets you toggle or swap between those two, then the average error number could be higher, but as long as everything looks even Steven, you're good to go. First input lag or delay test going wired, because that's always how we do it here. Wowzers. Oh boy. So there is an outlier there, which is going to be one large number, probably from when I first started spinning this. Okay, there it is right there. So we are definitely at 1,000 hertz polling rate, but it's actually showing a little bit higher. Let's run another one, another poll. Boom. So completing the test extremely quick because the PC receives those 1,000 samples, 0 outliers, minimum and maximum very close, jitter very low, meaning a very consistent wired connection. And as far as peak speeds, hella fast, 0.9 milliseconds. The dongle I actually like quite a bit. Not only is it just absolute plug and play with the controller, which sometimes these dongles aren't, but also if you do lose connectivity, there is a pairing button that's on the side, and I haven't accidentally pressed it. With a lot of dongles, press the sync button all the time when I'm plugging them in and pulling them out. Plus, this is a shorty, not a big long dongle, which looks nice if it's sticking off the front of your tower, and it actually lights up, which is really cool. I've never seen that before. But what I really like about this dongle is going to be the fact that it is that same goddamned speed as when we were going wired. There I go again with that naughty French, but hey, it made me grab my baguette because this sucker is fast. Ooh, now, no, that's from the outliers. Let's run a couple more, average it out. This ain't rookie hour here. So it is still very consistent, as minimum and maximum are farther apart, but that is just the outlier. As you can see, maximum is the outlier. Still a very consistent connection and still very fast. No overclocking necessary, but can you overclock it? Not really, because the manufacturer has already engaged their 1000 hertz stock clock, if you shall, and then when using a third-party program like the Lord of Mice, you can push to 2, 4, 8000, but it had no benefit with consistency or peak speed, so really no point to overclock this sucker. I haven't personally seen any latency charts for this controller because it just came out, but I did share a few days ago some killer resources if you want to check controller latency, which are additional milliseconds of lag or delay through button presses and thumbstick inputs on top of your clock speed. Second time I've done that. So luckily, a lot of the gripes or complaints I had from the GameSir Connect app, which is the latest piece of software for controlling their controllers, kind of doing away from GameSir Nexus, which they've been using for years. I am proud to let you know that the software has gotten a lot better just in a month, so that is fantastic. A lot of my gripes or complaints from the Tarantula do still stand true, but a lot of gamers would prefer DualShock 4, PlayStation 4 shape, and if you are one of those, and all the cons or complaints, gripes that I personally had didn't mean shit to you, they just bounced off you, then that is a fantastic controller for you to check out. An alternative option if you don't like the Xbox shape and layout of the Cyclone 2. And a cool thing that GameSir are starting to do now with their sub $60 controllers is include little charger docks for them. You get a pretty cool looking one with the Tarantula, and you get an even cooler looking one with the Cyclone 2, so that's cool. As for build quality, the Cyclone 2 feels a lot more buttoned down and secure than the original Cyclone, whether it's the plastics used, which does kind of play into comfort because the stippling is more aggressive, which feels better, but every single part or component seems, to my perception, to be a lot more rugged and durable than the original Cyclone, which had a lot of side-to-side play or wiggle in the face buttons, and the plastics were a little bit creaky, moany, and groany like I was during that review. I know I might have just skimmed over the converter or adapter support section of this review, not really spent as much time there as I generally typically do in my reviews, and there's a reason for that. This week, there's going to be a video about a new model from Brooks. Completely changes the game when it comes to converters or adapters. Very exciting stuff. Keep an eye peeled, and a subscribe dropped for that video. But a little teaser or sneak preview is this is one of the 130 plus controllers that does work to play PS5 games unrestricted, finally 4 years after the launch of the console, without using a dedicated DualSense or customized DualSense controller. So the V for verdict, this is the best GameSir controller currently, in my personal opinion, after having tested all of the offerings, past, present, and not future, but well, yes, I will be testing the ones in the future, but I haven't gone into the future to test those prematurely or anything like that. All the complaints or gripes from the Cyclone 1 have been addressed. The D-pad, the face buttons, the triggers, and GameSir took it upon themselves to put their finest modules on board, which are their TMRs, and the fact that this is wireless, unlike the T7 or G7 SE or G7 HE that I've reviewed recently. This is wireless, so you can use a converter or adapter to use it on all of your consoles, meaning a one platform beast, so to speak. Yes, that's an additional $45 for one of those adapters for PlayStation and Xbox. No doubt the Cyclone 2 will be seen again in the upcoming revised buyer's guide 2.0, if you shall. I'll be saying the same thing that I just said here. It's the best controller that GameSir currently offers. Drop in the comment section below what you think of this bad boy and what you're using to play games with, and I'll see you Stallions and Stallionettes tomorrow. Peace. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers, so this information will reach and assist them as well. Much like the back of the TV, I've got plugs for all of my socials down there in the description below. And your wallet will greatly thank you if you check the description, because there are exclusive discounts on a ton of products, including controllers, KontrolFreeks, keyboards, mouse pads, clothes, and energy drinks. And keep in mind that you, the viewer, keep this channel running. The more Stallions and Stallionettes trotting around the stable, the better, so mollywop that subscribe button like it owes you money, and we'll have the same amount of fun tomorrow.